If you are a beginner or lower intermediate player trying to improve your tennis on YouTube, there's just so much information on here. And I'm sure it can get complicated and convoluted pretty quickly. So we're going to keep it pretty big picture here. And today I'm going to talk you through two concepts that you should be trying to recreate on your forehand and on your backhand. I have a decent amount of experience working with beginners because I teach roughly between 100 to 150 beginners a year, depending on which classes I roster myself onto. And the way we'll do it is we'll take one of my students, Hollie, who's only been playing for about a year in the footage that we're going to use, and then we'll compare her stroke to some professional players. And I want to show you that these are two concepts that you should try and aspire to use in your own game. And I'll just layer over some footage of my student hitting the ball from the side view and also the back view. Okay, so the first concept is called high-low high. So I've pulled out Casper Ruud here on the left, and then on the right we have Hollie. Now I have synced the footage so that the contact occurs at the same time, but the balls are coming at different speeds, so the preparation will be a little bit different. But there are a few things that we can really learn from, and especially if you're a beginning player or lower intermediate player. So if we look at Hollie here, look at how she has a pretty strong ready position. Notice how she's got a slight bend in her knees, her toes are facing forward, and then she has the racket on edge. So what we mean by that is if Hollie were looking forward, she would just see the edge of her racket. And actually her racket is a little bit too high. We recommend that the top of the racket should be just below your line of sight. Now, when it comes to preparing for forehand, beginning players really struggle with kind of understanding what to do. You just want to have the least amount of moving parts and make it as simple as possible for you. So what we say is you want to leave the hands alone. You want to leave the hands alone and just turn your hips to the right. So if we watch here, look at how Hollie's hips are starting to turn to the right. And notice that her hands, I'll clear all this, have not moved at all. Right? So they are essentially in the same place. She's starting to turn the racket head, and now she's got her hands to the side. I'll just run through Casper Ruud's footage here and notice that he's essentially created the same movement. He's created the same movement that Hollie has on her forehand here. So notice that he's also turning his hips to the right, the same way that Hollie is turning her hips to us. And that just starts the first part of the forehand, and that is the high part. So you want to have your racket head high when you turn. So watch here, it's high. Watch here for Casper Ruud, it's high. Now, on the ground strokes, there are, let's say specifically the forehand, there are many sources of power. The two biggest ones are the ground, basically using ground reaction forces pushing off the ground. And then there's also separation, which is basically turning the body segments more than the ones down the chain. I've gotten into that in many other videos, but another source of power is gravity-assisted racket speed. So that's from Vic Braden. It's not a humongous source, but it is a source on the forehand. And you'll notice that a lot of the best players who prepare for their forehands just basically turn their hips to the side so the racket head is high. From there, you can kind of let the racket head just fall as you time it with unwinding the body and pushing against the ground. But so many beginning players, they don't get into this position here that Hollie is achieving, where she's keeping it so simple. She's just turning her hips to the right, and then from ready position, her racket head is really high. So if you're filming yourself, that is what you should be focusing in on, having a strong ready position, and then also how simple is your unit turn to the side. Another thing that you can pay attention to when both players turn, I'll unlink this footage so that we have it synced. When you make that unit turn, try to have your palms facing off to the side of the fence. So notice how Hollie's palms are facing to the side fence where the camera is, and notice where Casper Ruud's palms are as well. They're facing off to the side fence here. Palms or hands, whatever works for you. That's the high component. Moving on to the low component, which is so critical. You need to get your racket head low so that you can swing on an upward trajectory. Yes, it's a cliche, but sometimes cliches are very true. You need to swing from low to high. And if we look at Hollie's racket head, notice where it approaches from. It approaches really from below the height of the incoming ball. So there's some comment to be made about where her racket is positioned, where she's not getting much stretch on the forearm as she goes forward into the contact. If we look at someone like a Casper Ruud here, notice how his racket tip, it falls a little bit more this way here to the back right corner. Now, my input would be, yeah, you can also learn to hit in the way that Casper Ruud is doing. It's definitely more quote-unquote modern. Keep in mind, if you are very new to tennis, you might struggle a little bit more to hit in this way. But notice how for both players, the racket head really has gotten below the height of the ball. It's going to approach from below, and that's because tennis is a lifting game. You need to learn to lift the ball over the net and then into the court. The first barrier that you have to defeat as a tennis player is that net. So you need swing paths that will help you cross that first barrier. And for that, you need to lift really upwards and you need to get the racket head from below the height of the incoming ball. And then finally is that high component. So remember, it's high, low, high, right? So if you're truly swinging from below and you're swinging adequately outwards and upwards, your hands will just finish really high. We say catch your racket by the opposite eye. So if we look at Hollie, notice where her hands are finishing. She's been given the cue to finish and catch by the opposite eye. And let's look at Ruud here. We'll unlink it again. It is very interesting because, professional players, they swing so fast and the naked eye can only see so many, I guess you could say, frames per second, that players often miss out on really how high the hitting hand finishes. Look at how high the hand is finishing for Casper Ruud on his forehand. So that's what high-low high means. You want to start in that ready position. Then you just want to turn the hips to the side and get the palms to the side fence. Then you learn to relax the shoulder. The racket head should fall below the height of the incoming ball. And then you really just move the palm away, out, and upwards towards the intended target. This is a sponsored message by me, or my newsletter, The Fast 4. It's where I deliver one actionable tip designed to improve your tennis in 4 minutes or less every week. More than technical advice and input, I find that players really struggle with understanding how to practice, how to structure their sessions, and how to push past plateaus. And these are the topics that we cover in my newsletter. I'd love it if you joined. You can subscribe for free at the link below. And the second fundamental that you need to be aware of is swinging from inside out. I've queued up here Novak Djokovic, and also as an aside, thank you so much to Dane and Callum for allowing me to use this footage. If you haven't checked out their amazing channel, you really need to go check it out. It shows you the realities of trying to pursue tennis professionally and really how truly difficult it is financially to make it as a touring professional. Please go check out their amazing channel. I will put a link in my description below as well. So we are looking at Hollie here, and we covered the high-low high component, but now we're going to cover the inside out component. Inside out, it is pretty self-explanatory. It's where the racket moves from close to your body to away at the contact. And usually all great strokes move that way. So if we look at Djokovic, it goes from close to away. For beginning players, one of the things that I consistently see is that players will consistently set their rackets on the outside here. So players will set their rackets on the outside and they'll usually end up swinging across their body. Again, I personally teach over 100 beginning players a year. And then also in the programs, there's probably about 400 more. And that is really the most common thing that we see, is that players set their rackets away from their bodies and then swing across or swipe across. I have a running joke that I make to the first class of every beginner term, and that is, by the end of this class, a few of you will have hit this ball over the side fence. And that's because players really set their rackets away from their body and swing across. It's the number one error I see with beginning players. And there's a few things at play here, right? So the first one is the tennis court. It looks humongous. When you stand on the baseline and you look through the net, it creates a visual illusion for you where you think that you have a really open space, but you don't. The court is 78 feet long, 27 feet wide. From the center of the court, you have 19.6 degrees to play around with. If your racket head tilts this way, it goes to the left side of the singles court. If it tilts this way, it goes to the right side. That's 19.6 degrees. That is not a lot of space to mess around with. Put on top of that, if you are a beginning player and you're setting your racket on the outside of your body, Hollie here is doing a great job of not doing that. Again, what we'll see is players will start their rackets somewhere here, even here, and then they'll start to swing forward. That is just a recipe for creating a horizontal pull across your body. And if we look at Djokovic here, you'll notice as well his racket gets really on the inside and then it swings upwards and outwards to the target versus pulling across a little bit too quickly. And it matters because it really impacts what the strings are doing during the hitting zone. The players who set their racket on the outside of their body and then swing forward usually have shorter hitting zones. Again, I'll give you the caveat. If you are 6 years old and can hit thousands and thousands of balls a day, you can get to a pretty good level learning to hit inefficiently. But if you want to learn to play this game well, you have to learn to get the hands close to the body and then swing away and then upwards. Another benefit of getting the hands on the inside is that you can create a shape that matches the shape of the court. So you can swing from close to your body to away and up. Again, keep in mind how narrow the court is. You have 19.6 degrees to mess around with from the center of the court. So you don't want a racket that's traveling from east to west, west to east. You really want it to go away, out, and then up. We say away, out, and up towards the target. And then the other part I want to touch on is that it's not natural. Nothing about tennis is quote unquote natural. That's something that kind of irks me or irritates me. There is a philosophy that kind of states that if you just give a lot of balls, if you feed a lot of balls to players, they will quote unquote naturally pick up what's going on. Obviously, everyone has a different level of skill and talent that they're starting out with. There's nothing natural about learning tennis. There's nothing natural about the shape of the court, the equipment that you're using, and the balls that you're using. So that's why your swings have to match the shape of the court. I would say it's even a little bit unnatural to really create these vertical lifting swings, but they just happen to match the shape of the court that we're on. It's not like you're playing on a humongous cricket pitch or a huge oval or a huge football field for the Americans watching. We have a very limited amount of space that we're working with. And then another thing I will show you is I'll just flip Djokovic. So it looks like he's hitting on the right side of his body. And then I want you to notice that the swing paths are fairly similar with how the rackets travel. They travel from close to the body to away, right? Close to the body to away. And that allows you to lift the ball upwards, and notice how the rackets finish as well. Obviously, it's not identical, I understand that, but roughly the stroke finishes with the tip facing upwards, and then the players relax to finish their stroke. So these high-low high and inside-out fundamentals, they apply on the forehand and on the backhand. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I hope that helped to kind of give you a big picture of what you should be working on. Make sure you're filming yourself intermittently. Don't get obsessed with filming yourself and doing it every single day. But yeah, check in on your strokes.